There's so many moments that you can look at the uncle's life and say he didn't deserve that one. I mean, just the number of times he was hogtied, sold off for, I think, probably the, cents on the dollar, all things considered. Like, 3 bronze coins is probably, like, a loaf of bread and an apple, maybe. The dude was poorly treated, but I love how the reason he has such horrible actions is that it's not because of he suffered and then is, taking revenge. He's just clueless. He's an absolutely oblivious character to the point that I think his situational awareness might be some of the worst I've seen in anime, and because of that, we get some of the best comedy gold that the anime season has to offer. And the 3-week delay between episodes 4 and 5 was excruciating. I'd actually say this was one of the more painful waits for me because obviously the studio had to shut down for a bit because they ultimately had to take time off because a lot of their people who are involved in this had to take COVID breaks. So ultimately, instead of letting the production basically deal to work and rush it out and stuff, they took their time so they could get back onto their proper schedule. Even though it was a painful wait, I'm glad they did so because these types of episodes have so much quality in the facial reactions, the storytelling, and it just kind of reminds me of, you've seen it in probably so many different shows where, someone will be observing something and, someone would be passing by, they'd be like, wait a second, and then they'd join in, and then by the time that whatever the situation was is basically coming to a close, there's 100 people watching before it ends. That kind of feels like what this anime life of the uncle could be if they were watching this at a parkside bench or something, but because we're watching inside the apartment, obviously we only have a couple of characters, but it just kind of reminds me of those moments, and I do hope sometimes these moments will just expand the cast a bit more, because the reactions of just having 2 people is hilarious. I can only begin to imagine the reactions if we had a couple extra bystanders. But like I said, sometimes what happens to him, you feel bad, but there's so many moments that what he'll do is essentially leading women on, and he doesn't realize that he's essentially had 2 engagements in a day's worth of time, and the fact that he was basically forcing himself, and from her point of view, there's no other way to observe it, especially when the elf walks in. And I mean, he's literally doing hip thrusts. She's tied up with her sword. Yes, we know the actual context is she literally had bloodlust and was trying to kill him, so he tied her up and was trying to restrain her, but there's no way around looking at that scene, walking in, and not assuming something when said girl is crying and kind of looks like she's not very interested. The relationships this man's having with his love triangle right now, I'm not going to be surprised if he had a goddamn harem by the time he returned to his original world. But to see just the way, you bring someone back, she wakes up, has a ring on her finger, very forward. She's just to the point of being well, at this point all I can do is go bathe because I don't want to smell. And then he starts huffing her like a dog, saying, oh yeah, it's a bit of an earthly smell, but don't worry about it, I like it. The poor girl, man, she was sweating, she was almost running for the hills. And if this man didn't have the equivalent of a restraining order in this world, I would be surprised. Given what a restraining order is probably a very buff knight saying if you go in 20 feet near this woman, I'll beat your head in with a giant hammer or something, but still, there's misunderstandings galore, and I thought it was hilarious enough when it was just Takafumi looking into these moments, being like, Uncle, what in the actual hell? But now having his love interest also be a part of this and having both of them be dumbfounded is glorious, because the thing with this nephew and uncle dynamic is the nephew understands every which way the uncle went wrong. This was a love interest, you easily could have avoided this, but he's so oblivious to his own things that the uncle clues in and tries to ship them. For some reason, there's something that runs in this family that makes the men so goddamn stupid for their own relationships, but kind of geniuses when it comes to everyone else's. It's like they have situational awareness for everyone other than themselves, and it provides for some insane-ass comedy, man. But I wasn't quite expecting them to show as much of his, kind of anime life as we got in this episode, because it just kind of felt like, oh, we're going to show 1 or 2 quick moments, but instead we basically got a whole ass Isekai anime episode as they essentially just had to stop for a coffee break. And if that isn't one of the best ways to end an anime episode, I don't know what is. Because essentially you have your 2 characters observing the hell that was his life and just wondering, how did this man survive at all? To the point of literally needing to give them a smoke break, all things considered, because they can't watch anymore without needing something to calm their nerves, as you lead the viewers off saying, see you in 7 days. That is a glorious way to both tie an end of an episode, but also show just the mental fatigue that they are going through. And I'd actually say, even though it's been a few weeks since we saw it, so maybe that's part of the reason why I'm so, like, just captivated by some of these reactions. But even comparing, like, the first 4 episodes or so, it just felt like this episode had way more, like, the kind of horror face reaction, where the characters really get a little more elongated with their facial designs, and it's just like the lightning bolt backgrounds. There were so many moments where both of them were just literally saying, holy shit, this man is, that looks like, well, you're forcing yourself to, oh my god, you literally engaged with someone again. Like, how do you keep getting engaged without realizing you're getting engaged and then breaking their heart saying, go sell the ring? This man has no goddamn chill, and I doubt this is even the tip of the iceberg. I feel like we're just getting started in his misunderstandings when it came to the females in this world. But it's pretty great because they actually have like a legit isekai anime story being told, talking about Japan. You know, how would they know about that? The whole, like, ice, you know, sealing of an ice sword sort of a thing, but then making it a little funny with, if you stay around and be a nobody, we'll make you the town pet sort of a thing, so she lashes out. Some great responses, but even just the way they can just be so casual in their normal world, like talking about localization in video games, casually dropping Altered Beast, which is actually a game I really liked from back in the day, and just the fact that, you know, his amazing speedrun record, I think it was like 29 minutes and less than 30 seconds, right, of this one game, he kept using it as like his badge of honor in this world, being like, yeah, I used to do that. And Takafumi being like, oh, that's actually pretty cool. Looks up, 12-minute record, and just the crushing realization that your biggest accomplishment, the thing that you've basically cruised this world thinking, oh, you know what? I won't scam and be a baseball player and basically just cheat my way to success. I know what it takes to be a master at your craft. Look at my speedrun world record. Not even close to being the best of the best right now, and who knows if he'll even able to do it, because if he used magic, he could literally do anything, but unfortunately for him, he'll have to do it through pure skill alone, and given the fact that he actually has a lot less time anymore because he's always telling stories, who knows if he'll get good enough to even beat that record. And given his YouTube career when it came to the uncle form, people just thought all of his magic was practical effects, so I wouldn't be surprised if he did beat that world record, and people say that he was cheating or something because of a glitch in the recording or something like that. But it's pretty great, man. This show is hilarious. I like that it's actually telling a story. There's character bond moments, I mean, between the family stuff, the romance stuff, and just the fact that you get basically an actual isekai story that's almost like a parody slash kind of just comedy take on what you're expecting, to then shifting to a slice of life family with a bit of a magical twist to it, and it's just absolutely fantastic. Like, truthfully, you could probably have 12 episodes straight of just them talking and observing. Like, you don't even have to like focus in on actually what's happening. You could just look at the backsides of them and then sometimes turning to one another and just responding to the bullshit that they're looking at, and I'm convinced that would be entertaining enough. But there's so much flair to the visual style, whether it's them observing, us going into this almost grainy effect like we're watching a box TV, right? It's just so good with all these little touches, and that's why the delay was perfectly fine for me, because I knew they needed to take their time, rest up, and come back strong rather than trying to pump out a mediocre episode for one of the best isekai I think I've ever seen because of just its comedy take. And me being a comedy junkie, I love me some funny, and this one hits my funny bone every single episode. But thoughts down below, what do you think of this episode? Favorite moment if you got any, do let me know. Leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new around here. Till next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.